right, welcome back everybody to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. And first things first, this is a video episode again and exciting, amazing, incredible news. We have a setup now where we're going to try to do video episodes for every episode going forward. So check us out on the YouTube channel, subscribe there to catch these beautiful video episodes coming out. There's a little bit of technical figuring out to do yet, but if you can, check it out on YouTube, like I said, and you can see me wearing this beautiful retro Chelsea kit that Jim got me a little while ago. So tune in.
Yeah, and you'll see me wearing no Chelsea gear because it would be absolutely disgraceful if I would put on any of those disgusting blue colors right now. The team does not deserve my support, although they will have it until the end of time.
Good, good. That was kind of my mindset was like, I'm gonna really dig deep, put on the jersey, and show them all my support. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. I don't even know what to call it. Disturbing, maybe. 1-1 draw versus Crystal Palace today that Chelsea had. We're recording this on January 4th, so we'll have it up in the coming days, assuming all the technology works out. But the other piece of exciting news to share in this little introduction is that Jim and I actually got tickets to the Club World Cup. That's right, we're going to see Bayern Munich's opening match against Auckland City over in Cincinnati. That's the closest arena to us here in Milwaukee, just about a 6 hour drive. So I'm so excited for that to see Bayern live for the first time is going to be unreal.
Yeah, I had been looking forward to the Club World Cup for some time now, ever since they announced it, when we realized that Bayern and Chelsea would both be in it. Who knows? Maybe I'll still try to find a way to see Chelsea as well. But as of now, that's the plan to see Bayern, and it'll be great. Cincinnati seems like they're a solid soccer town, as I will call it soccer since it is in America. And their stadium seems fairly interesting, a little bit smaller. I think it'll make it more close knit and intimate, if you will. So, yeah, really excited to see what goes on in the Club World Cup this summer.
Yeah, and it's going to be great because it's, of course, a real match. Seeing a team from Germany in the United States play a real match, I feel like is a once in a lifetime opportunity, maybe a couple time in a lifetime if I'm lucky. But it being the first match too, I'm really excited about because, I'm assuming as long as they're healthy, everybody will play and everybody will be trying their hardest, to start off the tournament strong.
I would think so. And from what I understand, they're really going to do their best to try to force teams almost to play their star players. These tournaments are about the star players. So your Harry Kanes, your Musialas, FIFA's going to want them to play. So assuming Bayern complies with that, we should see some good action and they'll probably dominate this team. So should be good all in all. And it will be great to see Bayern fans from all across the country and world.
Yeah, so hang with us, of course, because we're gonna be putting out some awesome stuff. We'll share photos and videos, and I don't know, maybe try to do some sort of a recording situation down there. Haven't really thought all the way ahead to the summer yet. That'll be taking place in the middle of June, but yeah, just overall subscribe to that YouTube channel, of course. And in the meantime, you can go ahead watch the State of the Season address that I just put out for Bayern Munich during their winter pause, and watch all these video episodes, assuming that technology complies with us. We'll just say full steam ahead. There's a lot of good things coming.
Lots of good. And I'm not talking about Chelsea, obviously, I'm talking about Bayern and the things that we're doing with the podcast. So, yeah, it's definitely a bright time to be a fan of the show.
Yeah, so let's, I guess, stop delaying the inevitable and talk about that 1-1 draw that Chelsea just had against Crystal Palace today.
Yeah, I was pretty excited for this match because Chelsea, as poor as they've been lately, it was good to finally get a Saturday match. Chelsea mostly been playing on Sundays since they've been in the Conference League playing on Thursdays. And so I thought it was going to be a beautiful day. I was just really excited. I got up extra early. I was getting some reading in. If you follow my personal Twitter, I was reading some Harry Potter, about my 10th reread of that series, but really felt all my English vibes were at an all-time high. Started burning a new candle that I got for Christmas, a Chelsea game day candle. that I got from my beautiful girlfriend Jada. So, man, the vibes could not have been better. And unfortunately, Chelsea had to ruin all those vibes.
That's an epic gift. What does it smell like? What does game day smell like? Is it grass? Is it like Cole
You know, I
Palmer's jock strap maybe? Or what are we thinking?
I wish it was the latter, but I forget what the actual scent is. I think you could pick from various scents, kind of just a custom thing to put Chelsea like win on it. As I just draw my mic here, but nonetheless cool. And I thought things were going great, especially the start Chelsea got off to. They kind of went back to their lineup that's been their mainstay for a lot of the stretch of the season. And within 15 minutes, they got some decent chances and a goal. And you're thinking, okay, the candle's working. Chelsea are back.
Yeah, I saw that lineup. I liked it. I thought it was a time for some of these players who are maybe on the hot seat, I guess you could phrase it as but guys like Neto, guys like Sancho, guys in the defense who are playing Gusto maybe for injured players. I thought it was maybe a time for these guys to just show what they're made of. Just, step up to the plate against a lower table team like Crystal Palace and do something, that was going to knock Enzo Maresca's socks off or at least make me smile. And yeah, they overall didn't do that because, like you said, the man of the match, I guess. The one who scored the goal right away was Cole Palmer. Although I will say that was a beautiful move and a beautiful run by Sancho, and he did most of the work on that goal, but a nice finish by Palmer nonetheless.
Yeah, early on, it seemed like Chelsea's midfield were kind of getting in positions that they wanted to. There was a lot of space opening up for them in the Palace midfield and the Palace side of the pitch. Sancho was getting the ball where he wanted, Neto even at times. And then you're right, Sancho with a phenomenal move after a pass from Colwill kind of does a dummy where he lets the ball go by, works his way down the pitch, and then with his right foot kind of nicely puts in a little pass to Palmer, who I thought was going to take it first time, but took a touch and then kind of passed the ball in as he normally does. And you're flying at this point because we've been looking for Chelsea to get back to their winning ways, their scoring ways, and they put a goal in within those first 15 minutes. And then from there, even Chelsea were kind of opening up the pitch with chances. And it just seemed like, again, the ball wasn't getting into the back of the net, even after scoring one goal.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, yeah, like you said, and I thought that obviously Sancho did great on the goal, but I thought Neto looked pretty good when he had the ball too. Chelsea was mostly kind of utilizing that left side, and there was a period, like you said, after that first goal where they had a lot of chances, but just couldn't break through. And I think that's kind of been a theme these last couple matches, where teams are playing a low block against Chelsea, and Chelsea is really struggling to break through that low block, whether that be, I don't know if their attack isn't creative enough or what, but yeah, it's disappointing because Enzo Maresca is going to need to figure out a way to do that going forward now that I guess the season's a little bit farther along and teams have maybe watched some tape on Chelsea under Enzo Maresca and are starting to figure out game plans. It seems like, especially these lower table teams, are just throwing a low block out there.
Yeah, and even the chances they were creating weren't necessarily because of good play against the low block. That dummy pass from Cole to Sancho was kind of in the early build-up stage. And then the Jackson chance was off a set piece. Brilliant little cheeky play where I think it was Neto kind of heads it backwards to Jackson and he probably should put that chance away. And then the chance where Neto crosses one back to Palmer in the box, that was kind of maybe some early build-up play, but mostly Neto just beating his man on the right wing and then racing, toward the end line and putting a good cross across the box. So whether you say that's part of the plan or not is kind of up to how you look at things. It's the entire plan is to probably press up high and try to counter like quickly, win the ball back and look to counter. So that is part of the plan. It's not against that low block. So still those struggles against the low block, you could say, I guess is my point here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like you said, Chelsea's chances were coming from I don't want to call them counters because I think the way you put it was best, that kind of early buildup. And the what I wanted to see more of, I guess, is getting those balls out wide to maybe Neto on the right side or even Sancho on the left side. But I wanted to see, I don't know, Chelsea maybe swing it around a little bit with that high press, get the ball really wide, try to drag some of the Palace defense out wider, and then have more space in the middle for somebody like Palmer or even Sancho if he gets in the middle to do the work with less of a block because there would, be less defenders there.
Yeah, their best chances in that first half, a lot of times too, would be once again that early buildup. You win the ball back, and then they'd get the ball to Palmer in the midfield in a ton of space. And then he'd either look to do a pass to Jackson, and he had one beautiful one in the end of the first half where then Jackson tries the outside, the boot, and is just wide. But those were kind of the chances when you're getting the ball in the midfield and then you spray it out. You either spray it out wide, as you're saying, which I think a lot of times is a good option, or you try to get one pass to Jackson up the gut, essentially, and then he can kind of go from there. They just weren't able to find that last touch. They even had some to Enzo at some point where he'd have a touch or would shoot wide. Those came in the second half a little bit. But yeah, the first half, they probably should have had 3 goals and only had one, unfortunately. So you felt like Palace actually had the momentum going into half.
Yeah, and it before the match, I had written down that I wanted Chelsea to play together because that's something that I haven't seen the last few matches. There's moments of brilliance, there's chances that Chelsea's creating, but they're not playing together very well. And I actually wrote that note in the beginning of the match in my head, more so thinking about the defense because they look lost a lot for most of the match. They're okay against teams like Crystal Palace, but every once in a while there's a moment, we saw it at the end, where it's like everybody just collapses and there's no communication. So I wrote that about the defense, but I also want to see the offense play together. I want to see them, string quick passes along and break down that block like we are saying.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing is we know they have the talent. We've seen them do it a lot of this year, the beginning of the year, create these opportunities and string passes along and there's moment of brilliance from Sancho, Palmer, Neto, Jackson. It just seems like they're not able to lately put all of it together and take their chances when they do have them. And that's, I think, probably the most frustrating thing here. And then obviously, if we want to switch gears on the defensive side of the ball, you've seen that when they're not scoring goals, their defense, which hasn't been amazing all year by any means, but when you're not scoring, it'll expose your defenders more and your poor setup and defense. And I think that's unfortunately what's happened kind of these last 4 or 5 matches.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The It's such a risk, it's such a gamble. The idea of inverting, somebody like Cucurella or Gusto, who are both, I think, solid contributors on offense. A lot of times, Cucurella is a very good contributor on offense, good to great. Um, but when you have them so involved in the attack, you are leaving yourself vulnerable on the defensive side of the ball. And really, I just don't think Chelsea's defense is good enough to be that vulnerable, um, at least for a full 90 minutes, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it's tough. Cucurella, I think, has shown at times this year that he's a top 3 player on Chelsea. There's times where he will get back defensively and be a beast and one-on-one be able to stop guys in their tracks and be incredible. He hasn't shown that the last month plus, I would say. Gusto really hasn't shown much at all this year, to be completely honest, which I think is very frustrating because you looked at him last year and would have said he was maybe the third best player, but behind Caicedo and Palmer, especially when we've been missing Reece James, the last few years. So That to me is maybe the most frustrating part lately is those two fullbacks haven't been doing their job. And then you leave it up to the center backs. And while Colwill, you could argue, has been the best center back all year, the mix that they've had at that two positions just has faltered. But they're so vulnerable because of what we're talking about with the fullbacks. So who do you really blame? You kind of blame the entire system at that point. And unfortunately, today they kind of started getting exposed at times in that second half, as they really should easily score a sitter early on in the second half when the defense falters. And then chances kind of keep coming for Palace. They're the more threatening team. And eventually late they score with Mateta. And it had been coming, I knew it was going to come, and eventually it did.
Yeah, I mean, you texted me that it was coming, and you were right on. I think um, it was clear to see that in the second half, for most of the second half, Palace was the better team. And I even thought at the very end of the match, it looked more in favor of Palace than Chelsea to hit a winner at the end, which is saying a lot. I know Palace was kind of riding high after that late goal, 82nd minute, and they have the fans behind them and everything, but. You got to expect Chelsea to turn something on at the end of the match there. I totally agree with what you said about the center backs and kind of the whole entire defensive scheme and defensive structure. I think it should work against teams like Palace. That's why I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit, but I don't think that it will always work against the best competition in the world. And I think the other thing to mention too is communication is so key, and that center back with center backs in general, but especially on this Chelsea team, the pairing is so important, and the communication between the center backs and the keeper is incredibly important, and it just has been lacking for Chelsea. Obviously, there's injuries there, and Chelsea doesn't have a solid keeper option, but yeah, I mean, it was clearly evident today that the whole back line wasn't on the same page.
Yeah, and when you're not on the same page, things are going to fall apart. Sanchez has poor distribution basically the entire match because they're not on the same page. He's bombing it long in weird spots. It seems like he doesn't know who to pass to. Gusto isn't on the same page with anybody, multiple turnovers, a lot of them in bad spots. You know, Even Enzo a couple of times passing it back to those defenders, they're not on the same page. It's just frustrating, and I feel for Colwill and Josh Achampong today because I think they both showed some stones at times with key blocks. They both showed that they're brilliant with the ball, being able to pass it to the teammates, especially, into the middle of the pitch. I just think they're being let down right now by those around them. And that's what's frustrating is when you're not all together, ultimately you're all going to look poor, even if you're having a decent day.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, it's so up and down. Overall, Sanchez has a couple of incredible saves, and then, like you said, his distribution throughout the match was awful. He panicked in moments, he didn't know who to pass to, and yeah, I thought Coel and Achimpong were really good for the most part. But then just had a few moments there where they weren't in sync, or whatever the case may be, and that last goal started by a mistake from Palmer, but it's hard to blame really anything on Palmer because without him, Chelsea's looking a lot worse. And then by the time the ball got near the goal, all four defenders were out of position, and I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna actually crucify Gusto here because so often during the match, I'll see him racing back into the box, but then he's not following defenders. He's the one who lost Eze on his should have been goal. Multiple other times he's losing a guy, not tracking a guy into the box, just leaving guys wide open for crossbacks. I mean, it's almost like A, he has no interest in defending. B, he has no interest in racing back. C, when he does race back, he doesn't know how to do it. So, are you a defender? Are you an attacker? Well, guess what? You're neither because you can't score. Every time you shoot, it's pathetic and terrible. You can't cross right now. All your crosses haven't been good, even though they were good last year. And you're not getting back and defending well. certainly not one-on-one, and you're not tracking. So what do you provide for this Chelsea team at this point in time? And for me, it's nothing, which that's probably harsh, but it's true right now for him.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with you. He's clearly the odd man out. I think in most of these situations, he's not on the same page as the attack. You're right. I do see him hustling a lot to try to track back, but it's not like he's actually tracking back because he's not um like covering somebody. He's kind of just running back recklessly, it seems. I would love to know what Maresca says to him. I would love to know what the plan is with Gusto, because whatever it is, it's clearly not working. And yeah, unfortunately, these last few matches, Chelsea has looked immature and reminiscent of last year, which is a shame because they started off the year so mature and so strong, and they would put games like this away every time, it seemed like.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Definitely flashes of potch ball with losing late leads and almost looking like you just abandon your attack completely in the second half once you have a lead. The old joke of, go up 1-0, sub in Gilchrist to protect the lead and then blow the lead. That's kind of how Chelsea are looking right now. And I don't know, if I look forward in this transfer window here, what they need in the defense, Colwill, Achimpong, that's who I want right now, starting every match. You need Reece healthy. And I think that will be huge to see what happens the rest of the year. But if he's not, I'm playing Caicedo at right back. That's what I'm doing. I just do not trust Gusto, and I trust Caicedo with everything in my being. And if you do decide to do that, then I'm recalling Andre Santos from Strasbourg as much as I want to kind of let him develop and be a captain over there. Lavia has not shown that he can be healthy either. So you need midfield cover, especially if Caicedo's playing right back. And that's what I'm rolling with. I'm strengthening the midfield that way, whether Santos is playing then alongside Enzo or whatever the case may be. That's what I'm doing. I'm trusting Cucurella to figure it out at left back. And from there, you just try to build the attack back up and trust those guys you got. But that would be the moves I would make. And then maybe you bring in a striker. That's maybe a discussion for the next pod. But I don't know. It's just you need to figure something out and it needs to be soon. And you need to start firing on all cylinders. I think the beginning of the second half schedule is easier than the end. The end of the season gets really, really tough. So you need to start winning right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those are all key points. I think the last thing I'll say about this Chelsea team, you kind of put this idea in my head. I don't know if Caicedo would be able to do this, but you almost would have to. I'm thinking of the way that Kimmich plays for Bayern Munich. So he plays on the right side of the midfield, where I think Caicedo plays more on the left. But what Kimmich does is he, out of possession, essentially plays a right back, even when he's in the midfield. When Bayern doesn't have the ball, he'll drop way deep on that right hand side and kind of play like a right back, provide some extra coverage for those center backs because Bayern's right back will be so far up the pitch. Um, and then when Bayern does have the ball, he plays very centrally. He plays like a central role in the attack and yeah, has the ball in the middle and dishes it out to either side. So I don't know if you could do that type of thing with Caicedo where he's like covering the right hand side more, the back right out of possession. But you probably would have to like really change up the midfield if you were to do something like that.
That's actually kind of what he has been doing a little bit. You'll notice at times when they have the ball just swinging around the center backs, he'll be in between the right center back and left center back. Today's match, Achimpong and Colwill. And then at times he does kind of cover for Gusto on that right hand side. I'll notice if the other team are kind of countering, he'll be further back as a right back than Gusto at times. So I think that's kind of the problem is that he's already being that right back at times, but Gusto then isn't providing anything. So that's why I either would just put Caicedo at right back and bring somebody else in the midfield that can be better, because then maybe Caicedo pushes up as a right back and can be more of a threat. The other option would be to play a Tosin at right center back and put Achampong at right back, and then you more invert Kukurea on the left side because then at that point you'd have three traditional center backs in a sense and have more protection that way. So I could see Maresca doing that. I don't know if he wants to do that. You probably have less of an attack, but maybe that's what you need. I don't know. Something needs to be figured out for sure, though.
Yeah, I think this is kind of where Maresca really shows his mettle, I guess. He's got to do something because um yeah, it's not working right now.
Yeah, and I trust him. I've said all along with the hot start they had, I trust his instincts and his tactics for the most part. I think it's on the players just as much at this point because
Totally.
they haven't done enough in the attack, and clearly he doesn't trust guys like Nkunku, Felix, Dewsbury Hall, whoever off the bench to come in and score a goal. So that's an issue as well. I don't want to get too deep into that right now, but I think they'll figure it out. It's just going to be a closer battle for Champions League than I was hoping for.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything else to say about Chelsea? I have a few things to talk about for Bayern, if you don't.
No, not worth giving out any awards or anything. So
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked about it. Sancho had an amazing run for the goal and a nice finish by Palmer. That's the only bright spot of the match, I think, outside of a save here or two by Sanchez, negated by the dumb mistakes he made, or a block here or two by Colwell or Achimpong, really. That was all I could think of.
agreed.
Okay, so I guess moving over to Bayern Munich now. I in the last episode we did, I talked about the contract situations that Bayern should figure out during this winter period, ideally. And we have not heard any news from that. We're only a couple days into January. I expect we're going to hear more news, but go ahead and listen to that last episode if you want to hear about the situations for Musiala, Kimmich, Sane, Davies, Muller, Neuer. I talked about all of them in that episode. I don't know if you have anything else to add about those.
No, just hope they get definitely the Musiala contract figured out. Kimmich, I would hope as well. I'd like to see Davies stay. I think they all will stay, in my personal gut opinion. But yeah, definitely priority number one is Musiala. Give him the bag.
Agreed, and I think they're pretty close to having a deal done with Musiala. I mentioned it in the last one, but I think Kimmich is going to make life hell for these executives as they didn't back him up last year when Tuchel aired him out and wanted to replace him. But I think ultimately Kimmich, he has a big family. He's happy in Munich. He could become the next captain once Neuer retires, and so I think he'll stay. Davies, I'm still like 50-50 on, um, which is higher than last year. I thought he was out the door already. So we'll see what happens with Davies. Sane, I'm also like 50-50 on. I think it's up to him. If he performs in the second half of the year, I think he'll get a new contract. If he doesn't, I don't think he will.
Yeah, those guys I don't necessarily have as much of an opinion on. I think company and the directors, whoever's making these decisions, just need to start having a path forward in how they view this team and what they want, especially um, kind of heading into the second half of the year and the Champions League.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a couple things that came out since we last talked about loans for Bayern Munich. I don't think they're going to make any signings in the transfer window, but I did want to kind of talk about that for a little bit here. But as far as loans go, it broke that Tel is going to be staying on the team for the rest of this season. He's not going to go out on loan, despite interest from some Premier League teams, Bundesliga teams, and I think that's a great thing for Bayern. Just because I don't trust the health of their current wingers, I think Tel could be a vital rotational piece. Company's going to have to rotate a little bit more, and he's going to have to figure out what to do with Tel. And then the other news was that Nestory Irankunda is officially on loan now to Zurich, Grasshopper Zurich in Switzerland, I believe.
Awesome club. Believe they did a friendly against Bayern earlier in the year. So
Yeah, they did, and I'm happy with that. Irankunda publicly said that he wants a loan, which that's not the way to go about things, I don't think. But hey, he got his wish, and I think he needs to get some more playing time and kind of test his merit out somewhere else. So I think that's good. He's so young. He's a young Australian, and we'll see what happens with him. And then also, I guess Frans Kratzig is being loaned to Heidenheim. He was on loan at Stuttgart, basically never played, so they sent him back to Bayern, and now he's going to Heidenheim. So in and out in a day, basically.
Yeah, if you're a player that I have no knowledge of, you should go out on loan because that means you're obviously not good enough for Bayern and not getting time elsewhere to make enough waves. So good on anybody that's getting more time. I'm all for young players getting the most amount of playing time.
All right, so I just wanted to close out this episode by kind of diving a little bit deeper into the rumors for players that Bayern are looking at signing, most likely in the summer of 2025, as it doesn't seem like they're going to sign anybody in January. But it's long been reported that Bayern wants to update their winger position, kind of refresh, lose maybe Coman, Gnabry, Zane, and replace them with some fresh blood. I think Olise is really the only one right now that's completely safe. So I just want to talk about some of these rumors, and it sounds like it's almost a done deal that Florian Wirtz will be extending his contract with Leverkusen, so he will not be coming to Bayern this summer. Anything can change, but that's what all the reports are saying right now, that it's almost a completely signed, sealed, inked up, done deal. And that's a real shame because he was the one who I really wanted. He was the one who I would have, spent whatever for, gotten rid of whoever for, because Wirtz and Musiala, as we've seen on the German national team together, that could be a European dominating link up. And that's not even to mention Kane, Olise, Kimmich, all the other great players.
Yeah, I mean, that's a player that lots of clubs would spend a lot of money for, you know. I think it would have added a whole nother dimension to the Bayern team. It'll be interesting because there's a lot of players out there more in the summer, I'd say, that I'm sure Bayern will take a look at. But yeah, certainly would have been crazy to see Bayern make a huge move like that and get him. But
Yeah, I mean it's still possible for a little bit farther down the line, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this summer, which actually makes this summer a whole hell of a lot more complicated if you ask me, because there's a lot of guys who Bayern are currently interested in who I don't know if you can just go out and get if your plan is to bring Wirtz in maybe in 2026 or 2027. And he is a player that's good enough to like wait for, I guess. I think Bayern needs to, um, first of all, keep their wingers healthy. Coman and Gnabry are never healthy. Sane isn't healthy all the time either. And so the thing is to keep them healthy. But I do think you need an extra player or two. So it's rumored that Bayern's looking at Nico Williams, Jamie Gittens, and both of those guys I like, but I don't know if they're worth the amount of money they're going to command, especially if you're going after Florian Wirtz in a year or two. I mean, Nico Williams will be like probably 80 mil. Jamie Gittens will be, I don't know, 60, 70. And I don't know if they're consistent enough for that much money. Like, I don't know if they're that much better than what we have that I would justify spending that much money for them. And I like both of them, but I mean, Williams has been super inconsistent this year.
yeah, I feel like we talk about wingers a lot and how they're usually inconsistent and the most frustrating players on the pitch. So it's tough because to find somebody who's so consistent is really tough. You know, you got your Mo Salahs, you know, Palmer if he played wing. There's just not a lot of guys who are so consistent. Elise at times is so frustrating. And that's exactly how you said how I feel as well about Nico Williams. Definitely. He was a player that was linked to Chelsea for a while. And every time I see him, I was surprised at how much he was going to cost because he didn't seem like a player that was really at the top of the level. I know he played well for Spain in the Euros, but Gittins seems like a nice player. I don't know enough about him. I've seen flashes where it seems like he's got some nice speed and does some things well. I'm sure he'd fit in very well with Bayern, especially as somebody who comes from the Bundesliga, but again, just don't know enough about him.
Yeah, I think, I would be happy to get Gittens. It's hard because for one, it's like it's not my money, right? So what do I care what they spend? But you do have to think like if that would negate maybe getting a better center back to rotate in more because man, I think Bayern really needs a third center back. Company is running Upamecano and Kim into the ground, and at this rate, I don't think they're going to be healthy all the second half of the season. Kim's been playing through an injury throughout the first half, and we saw Upa was injured for a few games there. But yeah, I really do actually like Jamie Gittens a lot. I would probably prefer him over Nico Williams. He'd be a little bit cheaper, and I just like his game. I like watching him. Nico Williams, if you would have asked me after the Euros, I would have said, yeah, let's get him. But I maybe should look this up, but I think he only has like 2 or 3 goals this year so far, and not that many assists either.
And to be fair, it's not like his team is tops of La Liga, so maybe that's part of it as well.
Yeah, true. I mean, if you were to say you get Mo Salah, I would I couldn't say no to that. How could you say no to a player who's one of the best in the world, maybe the best in the world right now, and just lighten things up? I don't think it's realistic. But if he is an option, I know he's older, but I would be interested in that. I'd also be interested in Danny Olmo if we could get him. Who knows what his situation is with Barcelona right now? It sounds like every single day La Liga and the Spanish courts reject Barcelona's futile efforts, maybe to sell the rights to their seats or whatever the hell they're doing to try to scrape together enough cash to get Olmo to play. He wants to stay in Barcelona, it sounds like, but he would be a great player, I think, for Bayern.
Yeah, again, I don't know. He seems like somebody who has shown these flashes where you think he's going to be this amazing player. I don't know. I don't know if he's like a top player. I think he would definitely be good for Bayern. To me, he's just not somebody that screams brilliant signing. I don't know. Tough to explain where that even comes from for me to form that opinion, but yeah, I don't know. The Salah thing's interesting. Have you actually heard Bayern stuff, or were you just kind of saying that you'd love to have him?
Uh, I've heard like loosely. I don't think it's realistic at all. I haven't heard any sort of concrete evidence, but I mean, there's always the rumblings out there, right? Because Salah's situation is so uncertain right now with Liverpool. But if he were to come knocking, I would let him in.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely leaving Liverpool in the summer. Bayern doesn't feel like a team that would give him the money he wants. I think PSG and Saudis are probably like the most realistic options there.
I think
If they
PSG,
were,
yeah.
yeah, if they were to somehow get him, Bayern would instantly be the favorite to win the Champions League next year, and it frankly wouldn't be close. I mean, they'd easily be the best team in the world. But again, that's a guy that's older, even though he's been unreal this year. I just don't know how long you can trust that. So if I'm Bayern, I'd rather have somebody that can be young and grow with the team, and then you age Kane out, and this young guy kind of steps in. Obviously, they have Musiala, but that would be my preferred plan.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't said this on the podcast, but I've thought this for a while, and I think I'll save a deeper discussion on this for a different day. But I do think that Kane, um, if he wins, sorry, when he wins his trophy or trophies in the next couple of years at Bayern, I think he's going to want to go back to England. Kane is way too professional to ever say anything like that. He's way too professional to ever make it seem like he's not happy in Germany. And I think he is very happy at Bayern Munich. I just think he's such a family man. I think he wants to kind of raise his family in England. So my inkling is that maybe 2027, if he wins, you know, some big trophies with Bayern, my inkling is he would want to go back to England. So I think Bayern could start to look at a replacement plan for him. Um, Xavi Simons is someone who Max Eberl has been begging for. He wants on Bayern so bad. I don't think he's necessarily as good as his price tag will be. His price tag will probably be 90, maybe 100 mil. And I just don't think he's quite that good. I think he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, I'd love him, but I'd much rather try to get Wirtz, I guess. So Simons is also kind of injury prone. That was the problem with Danny Olmo too, is he was been injury prone as well.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys seem like they would take too much away from Moose in the middle, from what I've
Totally.
seen of Simone's and Olmo. I don't know. I think they would be better going for more of a traditional winger. I haven't looked into who else is really out there.
That brings
I don't
me
know. I
to to who I was gonna say next. Sorry to cut you off, but there's somebody like Chris Furyk out there, who is a traditional winger. I don't know if he's good enough. I hate to say it, um, for me to really want to give him a lot of money either. But he is someone who's a German and a traditional winger type.
and there's my Bundesliga lack of knowledge and of German ball as well. I couldn't even tell you who that is. Who does he play for?
Furyk plays for Stuttgart.
I do think Elise is a staple on that right wing for years to come here for Bayern. So I lean somebody that prefers the left side. And then if you can find somebody that Musiala can really work well with, maybe they can kind of go back and forth in the middle and left side there.
Wirtz is that
Even the
guy.
better
That's my
there.
dream.
Yeah, fair enough.
The only other player that I have to mention sounds like he's on the radar of Man City right now, and that's Omar Marmoush. He'd be someone who his profile wouldn't like fit in super well with Bayern, but I think you would have to go for him if he would want to make the move to Bayern. He plays, yeah, on that left side as a striker in a two striker system. So maybe you could like push him out to left wing and work with him there. But it'd be interesting as well with Davies how far he inverts up. So there'd be a lot of squad planning and rearranging to do. But he's a guy who I obviously love to watch. So I would want him on Bayern.
Yeah, and maybe a hot take here, but that's the name that interests me more than any name we've said so far. And I think the older Kane gets, it seems like he wants to drop deeper and provide more for teammates and get more assists. Yes, he still scores a ton, obviously, but I think having a guy like that with Kane could be more interesting than people realize. That kind of limits Musiala maybe, and then maybe you'd want to put him on a wing if you have Kane still more in the middle there. But I don't know. That's a little interesting to me, and I'd be interested in at least seeing how Bayern looked with Amar Mouche on the team.
Oh yeah, trust me. I've already drawn up in my mind, and actually on a post-it note one time, lineups that Bayern could do if they maybe went to a 4-4-2 and got a second striker like Marmoush, or hell, even put Tel up at that second striker role where he would flourish more than super far out wide like he's been playing as a winger. It's not his natural position, but um, yeah, I don't know. We'll get into it more as some things become more concrete, probably in the summer. And first things first, Bayern, Max Eberl, Christoph Freund, get these contracts done because that's what we got to do to lock up the team right now. And then number two is to stay healthy in the second half of the year. That's all I want.
Yeah, agreed. Health is the most important part for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's gonna about wrap it up. That's all I wanted to say. Kick some names around, maybe get some of your thoughts, and um, yeah, I guess the only other thing would be, do you bring in another attacking midfielder like Paul Vonner? Do you recall him from loan? They were talking to Tom Bishop on Hoffenheim as a midfielder as well. Do you try to throw one of these guys out at wing? I don't know. A lot to think about, but yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. Do you have anything else to add?
Just that I think it's gonna be a quiet window overall.
Me too.
And I'm speaking to that on a macro level, not just Bayern. It just seems like I know we're only 4 days in here, but January's a lot of times can be duller, and I just don't think there's gonna be any like crazy moves. So
Agreed. Well, I guess with that, I'll send us off, and of course, check this video out on YouTube. It is a video episode, so subscribe there, and we'll keep them coming. Mia san Mia.
up to Chelsea.